Good afternoon, everybody. 3 weeks ago, in Johannesburg, a 12-year-old died playing football. He came off the field at halftime after scoring 2 goals. He was part of my university's junior academy, and today he's dead. And in 12 months, we've lost 3 children of 12 years old. I'm an emergency physician. I'm not a sports physician. When I don't do my job, somebody dies. And I hope you're all awake this afternoon, because if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, someone else is going to die. And I stand here together with my FIFA and F-Marc colleagues on an onslaught and a war against sudden cardiac death. Because we have to bring this thing into line, we have to wheel it in, we got to control it, and we got to stop what is happening out there, where we're probably looking at one footballer who's dying at least every single month. So it's not whether it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, who it's going to happen to, and in what location it's going to happen. And so somebody in this room, if you're all involved in sports, is going to come across it sometime in your career. So FIFA has taken this war on. And one of the things that we have done as part of this organization is to develop the 11 steps to prevent sudden cardiac death, which is the greatest cause of death in sport. And so there they are, and we'll go through them step by step so we understand exactly what we're looking at, because each step has a message. They have a very important message. And the first thing is we need to prevent this. And we prevent this, first of all, by doing a pre-competition medical assessment. We can stop many of these sudden cardiac arrests, particularly those that are genetic, those that have abnormalities that we can pick up on ECG and echo. And so those are the people that we need to pick up. But in order to do that, there's nobody today who gets involved in sport who does not go on after a medical. It is almost negligent, it is foolhardy, it is almost paramount to suicide if you're going to play sports seriously without having a medical before you do that. And that's an important message that has to go out to everybody. It's just not getting on the field and training. There's a medical that goes before that training. Otherwise, we're playing with lives. And so we need a history of the player. A family history becomes very important, because a family history can give you the idea of what's happened. People that have drowning, people that have accidents in one vehicle, people that have unusual deaths before they're 50 years of age, and a physical exam to pick up any kind of abnormality in the cardiac system. And together with that goes an ECG, because many of these genetic abnormalities, your hypertrophic cardiomyopathies, atraumatic right ventricular dysplasias, a lot of these can be picked up with an ECG. And if there is something wrong, something that we're unusual about, something we're not happy about, just something that our stomach tells us is not wrong, then we go on to echocardiography to see what we've got. So prevention plays a very, very important part in the prevention of sudden cardiac death. And I don't think we're doing enough of it on enough people. Then comes the planning. If we can't prevent it, we have to be ready to manage it when it strikes. And that is an important lesson that we have to know. We can try and prevent it, but there's always going to be those that we can't prevent. We can't prevent commotio cordis. We can't prevent somebody running onto a field with a myocarditis. So these are things we have to be able to do. And what do? Well, we need to know how to treat it. We need to be able to CPR and AED training yearly. Every single healthcare provider on the field, every single physiotherapist, every single coach, everybody should know at least how to do basic CPR and how to use an external automated defibrillator. We need to be able to have some kind of medical bag, and FIFA is the first confederation in the world that has now given its member associations a bag fully equipped with everything that is needed to handle probably 11 of the most life-threatening injuries and illnesses that can occur on the field. And that is being turned with training, it's being turned with education, so people know what's inside the bag, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to take all the team physicians for all 32 teams who are going to be here in Brazil to be at the World Cup and teach them what's in that bag and teach them how to use what's in this bag, thank you, and to make sure that everybody knows how to handle a sudden cardiac arrest if that's going to happen on the field. And we've now set the standard. It has been published as a standard. There's a level below which nobody now goes near a sports field. You don't go with anything less. That's what's in this bag. And if anybody wants to argue with that, we're open to argument, we're open to discussion, we're open to debate, but in the meantime, we need this next to the field, every single sports field in the world. We need to have an emergency plan. And the only reason that Fabrice Mwanda is alive today is because when he went into cardiac arrest and collapsed, a system went into play. People knew what to do because they've been training and doing that regularly. They've been training for months, they've been training for years. It happened to them, and today he's alive. We need to be able to have the right people at the side of the team and the ambulances that are going to be there. And so we need to be able to train in CPR and know how to do that and to be current if we're going to be in sports physicians and we're going to be in sports medicine. These are the bags that have gone to the rest of the world. One of these bags has saved a life. We don't know which the next bag is going to be. But the message is very clear. What's inside this bag saves people's lives. We've got to have an action plan, because without an action plan, nobody knows what to do, when to do it, how to phone, where to get the AED, who starts the CPR, who picks up the scissors. They have to have a plan. And whatever the plan is, it needs to be practiced, it needs to be available to everybody. The people at the side of the team, the field of play medical team, are not people there that are coming to watch the game. If you want to watch a football game, buy yourself a ticket. If you're on the side of the field, you're there to work as professionals. You need to be able to watch the game, you need to see people injured, you need to know how they're injured, and you need to be able to do and work with all the equipment that you have. And training and training and training is what always is part of it. You don't just arrive with some equipment. There are specific ways of doing things to help prevent morbidity, to help prevent mortality, and prevent locations. And you can see that here we are before the Confederations Cup, people sitting and practicing and practicing and practicing before the game. Your ambulances are there. They are part of the emergency plan. They need to be in the right position. They need to be fully equipped. They need to be with the right kind of people that are inside. Number 5 is the football medical emergency bag. It is at a level of advanced life support. It has enough for airway, breathing, circulation, and has drugs included in it. It is there to treat anything from anaphylaxis to seizures to asthma, to spinal emergencies, sudden cardiac arrest, hypothermia, hypoglycemia. They're all sports-related, life-threatening conditions that need to be looked after. Your side field medical team, they need to be in position, and they need to know what to do, and they need to know how to do it. And that can never happen unless they are trained. So you need the right people with the right training, with the right equipment to be able to work very quickly, very competently, very confidently to be able to look after anybody that collapses on the football field. And so here we have one of the bags. There's one in blue, there's one in red, okay? And these are the bags that we'll be using for the World Cup, and that has now set the standard throughout the world for sports as a whole. Nobody should go onto the sports field unless there is a medical team that is fully equipped that's there. And even the stretchers that we have to go on. The days of having that old, soft NATO stretcher is out. It's barbaric, it's prehistoric, it's a dinosaur. We don't have NATO stretchers, we're not at war, we don't need an alliance with anything military. We need something that is medical, and it's either a hard, rigid immobilization board, whether it is a spinal board, it's a scoop stretcher, it's a Stokes basket. We need to have the right equipment and stop going back into history. So you've got to have the right kinds of equipment to be able to do what it needs to be done, and that's immobilization. Okay, we don't need to have what we've had beforehand. Ambulances need to be in the right place, in the right time, with the right equipment. The equipment has to be on board, it has to be checked, and everybody inside that ambulance needs to know how to use it. It's no use having the equipment and no one knows what to do with it. It's no use having fancy, new, beautiful equipment and no one knows which button to press. We need to be able to know this equipment, and you yourself as team physicians and sports physicians can never go near a sports field unless you know what AED is in that stadium and how it works. Because if you don't do that, you're negligent. Because you're letting somebody collapse without being prepared to know how to look after them. So here's the lesson that you need to do. Number 8 is if it is going to happen, then we're ready. And we've got to understand what it takes to recognize sudden cardiac arrest. There are 4 ways of diagnosing cardiac arrest, and you're not going to find it in the textbooks because the textbooks haven't even come up to date yet. Number 1, a non-contact collapse on a sports field is sudden cardiac arrest. You don't bump into anybody. Your patient just collapses. It's a cardiac arrest until you diagnose otherwise. It is nothing else. Your patient will be unresponsive and unconscious, which we know. Your patient will still be breathing because you're going to get to them too quickly for them to stop breathing. So they're still breathing. And your patient's going to have slow myoclonic type of movements. And don't think your patient's having a seizure. They're having a cardiac arrest. They're not having a seizure. You don't turn them on their side. You don't wait for them to stop having a seizure. You put them on their back and you start doing CPR and you shock them. If they don't have a cardiac arrest, the machine will tell you not to shock them. Don't you decide, let the machine decide. But get that machine there, and that's our biggest problem, is recognizing cardiac arrest. So anybody that is collapsed with any contact, with no contact whatsoever, is a sudden cardiac arrest. And be careful of that seizure activity, which is there. It is part of the brain that is telling the body to do something because the brain is becoming hypoxic. And it's right in front of you that is happening. And the patients start moving their limbs, and you don't think they're in cardiac arrest because they're breathing and they're moving. And we sit and we wait for them to stop breathing, stop moving, and we're wasting time. And in a hypertrophic cardiac myopathy, you get to shock that patient within 1 to 2 minutes. In other words, you want to shock that patient in 90 to 120 seconds. You haven't got time to mess around. Your plan needs to go into action, and then you need to start doing those 2 things. And the only thing that will save a life is chest compressions and shocking your patient. Fabrice Muamba had 6 shocks on the field. He was put into an ambulance. He had effective CPR done on the way to hospital. He was shocked a total of 76 times. You can smell the flesh after 76 times. That he's awake, he's alert, and he's very, very happy to be alive. And that's because of everything that went into action. The people knew about it, the equipment worked, and everybody did what they needed to do at the end of the day. And once we are now doing that, we need to hand it over to those that know more about that, and those are going to be the emergency medical services. Those are going to be those that are involved in this kind of work to be able to take that over. This is a very, very serious problem. We used to believe, and we hoped, it was a very rare problem. It's become, in sports and in football, a very frequent problem. It's in the newspapers on a regular basis. It's happening all over. I spend half my time researching and publishing and teaching and training in sudden cardiac arrest, a part of FIFA, because that is the war we're going to launch against this disease and this event. We need to find out why it happens, and we need to find out why it happens today. We know some of the causes. We mentioned that yesterday. We don't know why it happens today. It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen last week. And that's what FIFA and F-Marc involved in research in doing, to find out why people drop today. Is it infections? Is it myocarditis? Is it the drugs that people are taking? We know that non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are cardiotoxic. We know that some of the minor analgesics, such as acetaminophen or paracetamol, are cardiotoxic. And yet our players take them, and they take them in big doses. We don't know whether that is why they're dropping down in cardiac arrest. We can't fight this battle a single person. We can't fight this battle a few people. This battle can only be won if every single person out here takes on their responsibility. It's up to every single one of us here to make sure that we prevent it, we are planned for it, and when it happens, we do something about it. And then the sports people will stay vertical, running around, and not horizontal, and we bury them. Thank you.